And essentially, in my opinion, this is what Awkward is talking about, right?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Roger H3, and today we're going to be talking about the state of supports in Overwatch 2. I'm going to be discussing a few different topics, such as if supports are overpowered or broken, if the support role itself is actually a difficult role to play, and the dimensionality that the support role can have. If you guys are new to the channel, please make sure you subscribe to help support me as I continue to grow. Additionally, if you enjoy the content, please make sure you drop a like and leave a comment on the video and let me know what you think. If you guys agree or disagree with what I'm saying here, if you think supports are overpowered or broken, if you think supports are okay right now, I'm curious to hear what you all think. But let's go ahead and get into it. So before I even start talking about if I think supports are broken or overpowered, there are two portions of the video I want to go through first. The first one being is the dimensionality that supports can have and the dimensionality that you can play with when you play the support role. So to start off this portion of the video, I actually have a question for you all. When you play against a support, why do you think that they're overpowered? What do they do that you sit there and you say, wow, this role is extremely overpowered. I cannot do anything to beat this one or two characters? Well, I'm going to tell you what it is right now. What it is the dimensionality that the role can play with, and the dimensionality that people you are playing against play with. It is not inherently just the character, but it is how the person is playing the character. And my assumption is a lot of these supports that you're going against you think are overpowered are very likely both doing a lot of damage and they're still doing a lot of healing. Which this dimensionality gameplay style is very often talked about by Awkward and sometimes criticized by a lot of people. However, Awkward is extremely right. If you want to carry as a support, you are expected to do damage and heal. You cannot just be a heal bot and expect to be able to carry games. And I think a lot of people are running into this who are playing other roles and they're finding this extremely difficult to counter or play against. Let me share this conversation I had on stream the other day, just so you guys can kind of hear a little bit more details about what I think about the support role and the Awkward playstyle in terms of the dimensionality that a character and a person can play with.
And essentially, in my opinion, this is what Awkward is talking about, right? You have a one-dimensional support and you have like a multi-dimensional, two-dimensional support, right? So you have a one-dimensional support who like only heals and barely does any damage. They're one-dimensional because they only do one thing. So they provide very limited value in terms of pressure and how you can manipulate teams and make them move, right? But then there's a multi-dimensional support that does more damage while still maintaining heals. But in Awkward's theory, as you guys sound like you know because you watched his videos, in Awkward's theory, if you're doing more damage, you don't need as much heals because you're being distracting and your team can kill them. And essentially, you know, what his theory is in my mind is you need to be a multi-dimensional player rather than a singular dimensional player. And that's kind of how I see it.
So now that you guys have a good understanding of how I see the Awkward mentality and the idea between one and two dimensional play, I think some of you might kind of get the understanding that a support that's one dimensional doesn't usually cause a ton of problems, at least in the average ranks. However, a support that has multi-dimensional abilities, or a support that is both doing damage and getting out significant heals, can easily become a problem for another team if you aren't prepared to find a way to play against a support that has that mentality and plays in this way. Now, the second part to this video I want to touch on before we go in and talk about if supports are quote-unquote broken or overpowered is if playing the support role is actually difficult. Is there some sort of skill that needs to be used in order to be a good support and play in a way that's multi-dimensional and carry games and make an impact on the game? Well, the answer is yes. I mean, it is difficult. If it was easy, everybody would be a support main and everybody would be GM. But the thing is everybody is not a support main and everybody is not GM. There takes a level of skill, thought, and practice to be a good support, and it takes even more to be a great support. To be a good support isn't just, oh, pick Ana and throw a nade at my enemy tank, or, oh, pick Kiri and make sure you use your Suzu at the right time. No, there's a lot more to it. Yeah, using your abilities is a good start, especially using your abilities in the times where you need to use them. However, it is a lot more than just using one thing and using it for or against the other team. Now, I do think you could probably make a case that you get a luck of the draw, like if you have a good support on your team but the other team doesn't, or if the other team has a good support and you don't, yeah, that could make a big difference in the game. But at the same time, how many of you guys are actually sitting down and watching your VOD reviews and taking a look at your game and saying, okay, yeah, that was a bit frustrating. I mean, there were things where I wish they would have went different. But how many of you, once again, are sitting down and saying, like, okay, what did I do that I could improve? Now, sometimes, yeah, your team's performance is going to make you lose, and that's just how it's going to be. But I feel like too many people are blaming everything else but themselves to sit down and realize that they could have made a difference even though they think they couldn't have. And I'm not going to lie either. I think there could be a case that's made that you can say a support could have more impact on a game than a tank or a DPS can. But at the same time, I'm going to sit here and preach that if you guys got a bad tank, no matter what you do, you're probably not going to win. Now, having a tank who just isn't winning or losing the game, you can win with that, obviously, because they're not going one way or another. They're doing just what they need to do. And a tank doing just what they need to do may not always result in getting a lot of kills. Now, if you have an absolutely bad tank that doesn't do anything that they're supposed to do, doesn't make any space at all, and your team can't play around them, like they're pretty much feeding and throwing, then that's going to make a bigger difference on a game than one support will, in my opinion. So with all these points being discussed and everything I mentioned, that leads us to the last portion and the big question of the video that we want to answer and that I wanted to bring up and talk about is, are supports broken and overpowered? And we can even go further and say specifically, is Bap, Alari, Ana, Kiriko, maybe even Brig, are all of these people overpowered? Well, honestly, I think it comes down to your definition of overpowered. If you just are of the belief that supports shouldn't be able to do any damage and they shouldn't even have the potential to pretty much win any duels or any fights with any DPS, then yeah, I could guess you can say that they're overpowered. But really, in the way the game's playing, I don't know if they are overpowered. I don't know if it's that they're overpowered or if everybody's just making a big fuss out of it because supports can make a big impact. So at the end of the day, this is kind of a circular answer here. Maybe our issue is tanks just need to be a little bit more powerful and have a little bit more survivability, and then we are okay and everything seems to be more balanced. Or alternatively, maybe everybody needs to be stepped down a notch and then everybody will be balanced. I think either way could potentially work, but I don't think support is as overpowered as everybody claims it is. And I know at different ranks, especially as you get higher, a singular support playing really well isn't gonna necessarily be a huge differentiator between everybody else in the lobby. I think the main discussion for if supports are overpowered or not is happening amongst the average group to above average group of players, and maybe even below average. But I think for those people who are at higher ranks, the idea of supports being insanely overpowered isn't as big of a conversation as people make it out to be. And to be honest with you all right now, I think the only reason that we're even having conversations saying that support is overpowered right now is because there's a large group of people who find tank either unplayable or not fun anymore. And I think that circumstance alone means that everybody has to attack supports and say that supports are the reason the tank is unplayable and unfun. I think there's more than one layer to it, and I see where tank players come from by saying the supports are very annoying and that they could be overpowered, but I'll leave that open to your interpretation. I know there's going to be people who are going to watch this and say that I'm stupid and that supports are overpowered, and then I know there's going to be people who watch this and maybe understand that supports might not be as overpowered as some people think they are. But with all these points being said, I'm going to go ahead and round out the video here. I'd really appreciate if you all leave in the comments how you feel about supports. Do you think supports are the issue? Do you think tanks are the issue? Do you think that there's a fundamental issue with Overwatch? Or do you think that we all just always have to have something to complain about because we always want to see changes and updates to our games? Additionally, if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure you subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please drop a like to help support me. And we'll see you all next time.